The moment my best friend reached for my hand after the dance, I thought it was because she was afraid of getting lost in the crowd. I was wrong. What she whispered next changed everything I thought I knew about friendship, loyalty, and the hidden battles people fight behind their smiles. Before we begin, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to LifeLine Vibes if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can become someone's reason to keep going. The annual Spring Festival had always been the brightest day of the year in our small town. The streets were decorated with colorful banners, food stalls lined the sidewalks, and music echoed from every corner. The afternoon sun painted everything in warm golden light, making the entire town feel like a dream. For most students at Riverview High, it was a day filled with excitement and celebration. For me, it was simply another chance to spend time with my best friend, Maren Holloway. Maren had been my closest friend since middle school. She was the type of person everyone liked instantly. Her smile could light up an entire room, and her laugh had a way of making difficult days feel manageable. Teachers admired her, classmates trusted her, and strangers often found themselves smiling back whenever she walked past. From the outside, Maren seemed like she had the perfect life. I knew better. Over the years, I had noticed the tiny cracks she tried so hard to hide. The way her smile occasionally faded when she thought nobody was looking. The way she avoided talking about home. The way she sometimes looked exhausted despite claiming she had slept well. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, she always brushed it aside and changed the subject. That festival afternoon, however, something felt different. We spent hours walking through the crowded streets, eating snacks, laughing at silly carnival games, and watching local performers. The weather was beautiful. Children ran through the park chasing balloons while families gathered beneath large trees for picnics. Everything seemed perfect. Yet Maren remained strangely quiet. Several times I caught her staring into the distance as if she were carrying a burden too heavy to explain. Whenever I asked what she was thinking about, she forced a smile and assured me she was fine. As evening approached, students gathered in the town square for the outdoor dance. Strings of lights stretched overhead while music filled the warm air. Couples danced beneath the glowing decorations while groups of friends laughed and took photos. Maren and I weren't there as a couple. We had always been best friends and nothing more. At least, that was what I believed. The dance continued for hours. We laughed, danced awkwardly, and enjoyed the carefree atmosphere surrounding us. For a little while, Maren seemed genuinely happy. The sadness I'd noticed earlier appeared to fade. Then the final song began. The crowd slowly gathered closer together. The music softened. Conversations became quieter. As the song ended, people began saying goodbye and heading home. That was when Maren suddenly reached for my hand. Her fingers trembled slightly. When I looked at her, I noticed tears gathering in her eyes. Before I could ask what was wrong, she leaned closer and whispered words that immediately sent a chill through my entire body. "Can I go home with you?" For several seconds, I couldn't respond. Maren had never asked anything like that before. She wasn't joking. The fear in her eyes made that painfully obvious. Without hesitation, I nodded. The relief that washed across her face was heartbreaking. We walked toward my house in silence beneath the fading daylight. The streets were growing quieter as families returned home after the festival. Normally Maren would have been talking about our favorite moments from the day, but now she barely spoke. Something was terribly wrong. When we arrived at my house, my mother welcomed her warmly. Maren had visited countless times over the years, so nobody found her presence unusual. Still, I noticed something strange. The moment she stepped inside, her entire body relaxed. It was as though she had finally reached safety. That night, after dinner, we sat on the back porch overlooking the garden. The sun had completely disappeared, leaving only soft twilight across the sky. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then Maren finally broke the silence. What she told me shattered my heart. For years, she had been living in a house filled with emotional neglect and constant tension. Her father had abandoned the family when she was young. Her mother struggled with severe depression and often disappeared emotionally for weeks at a time. There were days when nobody spoke to her. Days when she felt invisible. Days when she wondered if anyone would notice if she simply vanished. The cheerful, confident girl everyone admired was carrying unimaginable loneliness. The reason she had been acting differently that day was because things at home had reached their worst point. Earlier that morning, she had discovered her mother planning to move away with a boyfriend she barely knew. The plan didn't include Maren. At 17 years old, she felt unwanted by the only parent she had left. As tears streamed down her face, she admitted something even more painful. She had spent months pretending she was okay because she didn't want anyone to see how broken she felt. Listening to her speak, I realized how little we truly know about the battles others are fighting. People often become experts at hiding their pain. They smile, laugh, and continue living while silently carrying burdens nobody can see. That night, my parents insisted Maren stay with us. She cried harder than I'd ever seen before. Not because she was sad. Because somebody cared. The following weeks became some of the most difficult and important days of our lives. Maren's situation at home continued deteriorating. Conversations with her mother rarely ended well. Promises were broken repeatedly. Uncertainty hung over every part of her future. Meanwhile, my family did everything possible to support her. My mother helped her contact school counselors. My father assisted her with college applications. I simply listened whenever she needed someone to talk to. Slowly, tiny changes began appearing. The dark circles beneath her eyes started fading. Her smiles became more genuine. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. One afternoon, while studying together beneath a large oak tree near school, Maren confessed something that caught me completely off guard. She admitted she had nearly given up on herself months earlier. Not because she lacked dreams. Because she believed nobody would care enough to help her reach them. Hearing those words left me speechless. The strongest people often suffer in silence because everyone assumes they're doing fine. Maren had become so skilled at hiding her struggles that even those closest to her never fully understood how much she was hurting. As graduation approached, new challenges emerged. Maren's mother officially announced plans to move away. The news devastated her. Even after everything, part of Maren still hoped her mother would choose her. Instead, she felt abandoned all over again. For several days she barely spoke. The old sadness returned. I worried we were losing all the progress she had made. Then something remarkable happened. Instead of allowing heartbreak to define her future, Maren decided to fight for it. She focused on school. She worked part-time jobs. She applied for scholarships. She attended counseling sessions. Little by little, she began building a life independent of the people who had failed her. Watching that transformation was inspiring. Strength isn't the absence of pain. Strength is continuing forward despite it. Graduation day arrived beneath bright afternoon sunlight. Families filled the stadium. Students laughed nervously while preparing for the ceremony. As names were announced, graduates crossed the stage one by one. When Maren's name echoed through the speakers, the crowd applauded. I looked toward her seat and felt an ache in my chest. Her mother wasn't there. Neither was her father. No parent stood waiting with flowers. No family member cheered from the stands. For a brief moment, I saw sadness cross her face. Then my parents stood. They began applauding louder than anyone else. I joined them. Soon several nearby families joined as well. The entire section erupted into cheers. Maren looked toward us and started crying. But this time, they weren't tears of loneliness. They were tears of belonging. Months later, she received acceptance into a university she dreamed about attending for years. The scholarship covered nearly everything. The impossible was finally becoming reality. Before leaving for college, Maren spent one last afternoon with my family. We gathered in the backyard beneath clear blue skies. The same garden where she had first shared her story now felt completely different. There was laughter. There was hope. There was peace. As the afternoon sun filtered through the trees, Maren thanked my parents for everything they had done. Then she turned toward me. For several moments she struggled to find words. Finally, she smiled. She admitted that the night after the festival dance had saved her life in ways I would never fully understand. She explained that she hadn't asked to come home with me because she wanted a place to sleep. She had asked because she desperately needed somewhere to feel safe. Somewhere to feel wanted. Somewhere to believe she mattered. That realization stayed with me long after she left. Years passed. College transformed Maren's life. She excelled academically, formed meaningful friendships, and eventually built a successful career helping vulnerable teenagers facing challenges similar to those she had survived. She became the kind of person she once desperately needed. Our friendship remained strong despite distance and busy schedules. Every year, without fail, we met at the spring festival. The same festival where everything had changed. One bright afternoon nearly a decade later, we sat together watching students dance beneath strings of colorful lights. The scene looked almost identical to the night that altered both our lives. Maren looked around and smiled. She wasn't the frightened girl who had once hidden her pain behind forced happiness. She was confident. Strong. Whole. And then she said something I'll never forget. She told me that people often underestimate the power of showing up for someone. A conversation. A listening ear. An open door. A simple act of kindness. Those small moments can become turning points in another person's story. Looking at her, I knew she was right. If I had ignored her fear that night. If my family had chosen convenience over compassion. If she had continued believing she was alone. Her life might have followed a completely different path. Instead, one act of kindness created a chain reaction that changed everything. Before we reach the end of this story, if Maren's journey has touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to LifeLine Vibes. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach people who may need hope today. And now, a special request from us to you. Comment below, you matter, if you believe every person deserves kindness, support, and a second chance. As the sun slowly set over the festival that evening, I watched families laughing together while music drifted through the warm air. Maren stood nearby speaking with teenagers from a local mentoring program she volunteered with. The same girl who once felt forgotten had become a source of hope for countless others. Life doesn't always give us perfect families. It doesn't always give us easy paths. Sometimes the people who should love us the most disappoint us. Sometimes the people who save us aren't related to us at all. Sometimes family is found rather than inherited. And sometimes a trembling hand after a dance, a quiet request for help, and a single open door can change an entire life. The truth is that every person you meet may be carrying struggles you cannot see. A smile can hide heartbreak. Success can hide loneliness. Laughter can hide fear. That is why kindness matters. That is why compassion matters. That is why showing up for one another matters. Because somewhere, someone may be waiting for proof that they are not alone. And sometimes, without even realizing it, you become that proof. Maren's story didn't end the night she asked to come home with me. It began there. And that beginning became a life filled with hope, purpose, healing, and love. A life she once thought was impossible. A life made possible because someone chose to care. And perhaps that is the most beautiful lesson of all. No act of kindness is ever truly small. Sometimes it becomes someone's entire future.